Let's keep the New York Jets conversation going, baby. We've got a special guest from the mothership. ESPN's Rich Cimini joined us to talk all things New York Jets green and white. There's plenty to get into. Let's get this party started.
I'm going to lose my gosh darn bananas. Boy Green Daily starts now. Zoinks!
I made it clear that my intention was to play, and my intention was to play for the New York Jets.
You're fucking Russian!
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Paul Eston Jr., baby, a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Every.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you get your podcasts. Let's bring in a special guest. He needs no introduction. He is Rich Cimini of ESPN, and he just wrapped up season number 36, baby, covering the gosh darn green and white, and he's still here, baby. There should be a word for that sort of thing. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul. Good to be with you. I think the word is either insanity or just real dedication, one or the other, somewhere in between.
I was just about to say, have you figured out which word it's closer to, or
somewhere in the middle, somewhere? Yeah, probably more insanity than anything else.
I appreciate the candidness there. That's important. And I didn't know this stat was true until I just stumbled upon it. You are the longest tenured beat writer in the history of the New York Jets.
Oh, yeah. I don't even think it's close for second. No. And I think I'm one of the longest in the country for any team. There might be like two or three who we're all pretty close, but probably definitely top five, I would say.
Yeah, which is pretty good. I haven't heard anyone ever ask you this. So you're in your home office. You have a million books behind you. I got a bunch of these football books behind me. I got a couple of Bill Parcells, some Mike Westhoff action. What do you have back there? Is it personal stuff? Is it research stuff you've done for your job here, there, or the other? We got a lot of action back there.
Well, I do have a Bill Parcells book. I do have the Mike Westhoff book back there.
There you go.
Okay. This is my football shelf right here.
Yeah.
I have the Belichick, a lot of Patriots books, a lot of Belichick.
Sure.
Pretty much any Jets-related book that's been written. I also have a stack down here that you cannot see, but is all Jet media guides going back to like the late 90s, probably the mid 80s, actually. I have going back, and media guides aren't even a thing anymore. They're all digital, but back in the day, they used to have an actual book. And so before the press conference the other day, I dug this one out. This was the Aaron Glenn 1994 Jet Media Guide, which I ended up posting a picture on social media of Aaron. And I just thought it was kind of funny to go back and see who was on that team. And it was a cool team. Pete Carroll was the coach, and there were a lot of interesting guys on that team. But here's the Aaron Glenn page.
Oh, right my gosh. Look at that young buck right there.
Yeah, interesting. Glenn Foley also in that class, and he was there at the press conference the other day.
Oh, really?
And I hadn't seen him in a few years, so it was great to see Glenn Foley as well.
Wow, there you go. Glenn Foley. That's a Nintendo 64 I'm playing NFL Blitz reference. That's my quarterback when I'm playing as the Jets back in the day. So that's a wild trip down memory lane. That's beautiful. Yeah. So no, I've seen you do a million interviews, Rich. I haven't had anyone ask you about all your book collection back there.
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's just, and actually there's another shelf you can't see where I have it's really sloppy, so I don't want it to be seen, but I have all notebooks, like old reporters' notebooks, just like probably 50 or so, just from the last few years.
Yeah.
And so I just keep those as reference. You never know. I mean, obviously, more and more stuff is going digital. I'm still one of the old school guys. I take notes on a notepad, but now more and more I just use this, to record my interviews. I have them all logged in here.
Yeah.
My transcription app. So, but yeah, I got everything I need right here, and this is my war room.
Yeah, well, I love it. It's great to be in your war room. Now, Rich, riddle me this. You've teased this for a long time, that a book is coming at some point. When's that book coming, Rich?
Oh, yeah. So I am so busy. I don't have time to do a book right now,
Sure.
but I will just say that there's been conversations going on.
Oh,
So
hey now.
yeah, there's been some exchanging of ideas and so forth. So, the Jets keep me so damn busy though. That's the
That's a good
problem. I
point.
never have any free time. And as you know, when there's a coaching change, it creates a different dynamic to the off season for sure.
Well, we have a lot of good mutual buddies. So if you, whenever that book happens, Ian O'Connor, Gary Myers, you got a lot of wonderful people that have written some terrific books.
I
That
have
you
all
can
their
definitely
books on my shelf right here.
as do
Gary,
I. So,
Gary, who I was just talking to a few minutes before we started. I was just
mhm.
talking to Gary. He's working on another book
Oh,
that
man.
will be out in the fall on Brady and Belichick. So,
Mhm.
hopefully I can join those guys in the book world one day.
Well, I can't wait for that. And Rich, during your time covering the team, obviously you've covered an introductory press conference or two. I'm curious on AG, a guy that again you got to cover as a player way back when, and now full circle, he's lived a life, and now he's come back to see you as the head coach. How do you think he handled both the introductory presser and everything that came after your guys' media scrum down there, TV,
Yeah.
radio? I mean, he got the full flavor of New York, just in case you forgot about it.
Yeah, no, I thought he handled it really well, and I'm not surprised. I wasn't like, wow. I expected it. Just knowing the kind of personality he has. He's real serious. He spoke with conviction about what he wants from his players and the team, and he did not. I'm sure everybody knows he did not want to talk about Aaron Rodgers. He really didn't want to talk about any individual players, and I think that is a clear Parcellsian message to like the team and the coaching staff and the fan base that no one player is bigger than the team. It's all about the team, and you're going to see a lot of that going forward. And I kind of smiled to myself because I was listening to him speak even afterwards in the media scrum, and I could almost hear echoes of Parcells and the same philosophy and just the way to handle the media. Aaron bites back.
Yeah.
Like he got a little feisty when I asked him a question about Rodgers, and that was totally Bill. And he did a really strong. It was very impressive first day for Aaron Glenn.
Do you enjoy that little tete-a-tete? You've had it a few times in your career, Rich, where you've had colorful conversations between you and coaches. Do you like that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're doing your job right if you're not mixing it up a little bit like that.
Mhm.
No, I think in Aaron's case, I think he wanted to probably send a message to the media
No doubt.
that he's not going to be lured into conversations that he didn't want to have. I mean, he clearly did not want to talk about Aaron Rodgers,
Right.
but it's our job to,
course.
that was the story of the day, to get his response to the possibility of Rodgers being on the team. And so, he nipped a little, he bit back, and I enjoy that, back and forth. Believe me, I've gotten chewed out publicly by Bill Parcells in press conferences, and there's, that could be pretty humiliating. If you could withstand that, you could withstand anything.
Hey, maybe you're looking forward to the full circle moment. You get a good tongue lashing, I guess, from Aaron Glenn at some point, especially with how much. That's the cool thing I would say, Rich, and something that I love about your work covering the Jets is you reference Bill Parcells all the time. He must be someone I'm sure that you speak with often. We've seen it in a couple of your recent articles of your conversations with Bill as it pertains to AG, and we've heard from national media that AG has a very similar relationship with Bill, where he's talking to him all the time and kind of going through it. So it's kind of cool that you were able to kind of, again, close your eyes, pick up the seashell on the ocean, go, wait, is that Bill Parcells speaking or AG?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I keep in touch with Bill. I mean, we don't talk often, but I had spoken to him right after the Jets season ended. I think it was the next day. I think I was still in Buffalo, actually, the next morning, and we had a conversation, and we were talking about Aaron Glenn because I knew he was going to be one of the finalists for the Jet job. And I think I even predicted that he would get the Jet job on my podcast. I didn't get the GM thing right though. I had Bergonzi on my pick, and I still maintain that he might have been the most qualified candidate, but obviously they went in a different direction. But and then I, of course, called Parcells when it became official that Aaron Glenn was going to be the coach. And, Bill, sometimes it depends on the type of day you get him. If you get him in the morning, he's usually a little more perky. As the day goes on, his mood sours a little bit. But boy, he was so excited to talk about Aaron Glenn. He really did. You could just tell, you could hear the enthusiasm in his voice. This is someone he's really been mentoring, even going back when he was coaching him, and then certainly afterwards, in post. And that's what Bill does now. Bill I have this vision of like the Godfather. He sits in his house in Jupiter, Florida, or Saratoga, depending on the time of year.
Yeah.
And people call him, coaches call him all the time, whether it's Sean Payton or Dan Campbell. Like, Bill knows everything that's going on because he knows half the coaches in the league,
right.
And they call him for advice, to pick his brain. And he's really become a sounding board for a lot of coaches.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. A shout out to our mutual buddy here, Connor Long's here on the show, baby. Rich BG, two freaking goats. I don't put myself in the rich category, but kind words, Connor, nonetheless. We appreciate that, pal. And a rising star in the business that's going to take both mine and Rich's job one day. There's no question about
probably.
it. So
probably.
Salute there to Connor. Did you hear that story before that AG told at the presser about how, like, after Aaron decided to retire, spend some time and be, the best father he could be, and say, I'm getting back into this thing. And he gives old Parcells the call there and says, I want to coach. You're a scout. I don't want to scout. You're going to scout. That I see a future head coach in you. What an amazing story at the AG presser. Is that one that you've heard before, Rich?
Yeah. So I've kept in touch with Aaron Glenn over the years, and, he was doing really well in the restaurant business. And I think he owned 8 or 9 restaurants in the Houston area. So really, of course, that's where he grew up. He played a few years there with the Texans. And so he was living a comfortable life, to be sure, but just the frustration of not being able to coach. And I actually think he went, his brother Jason, of course, played for the Jets as well, and was doing some high school coaching in Texas at the time. And I think Aaron went down to one of his practices and started working with some of the guys, and it was kind of like coming back to him. It's like, man, I love doing this. And even Jason thought at the time, my big brother's, he's destined to get into coaching. And sure enough, now he's at the pinnacle of the profession.
Again, we're speaking Rich Gosh darn Cimini, baby. ESPN Jets reporter and host of the award-winning Flight Deck podcast, baby, which you guys can find. We're always waiting on the edge of our seats for the next episode. That's a wonderful product that you have, Rich, doing that. We have a lot of big fans of that show, I'm sure, here on the program. A couple of these coaching staff is starting to finally come together here. Jet fans, Rich, we're on the edge of our seat. Where's the next news, man? We got to get ready. Aaron Glenn's got to be hopping on the staff, and a lot of things are coming in here, including Steve Wilkes. That was widely rumored that he'd be the guy, and that seems pretty important for old AG to get someone who's got some NFL head coaching experience on that staff, especially that DC job, since Aaron Glenn said he's not going to be calling defense here for the Jets.
Yeah, so Steve Wilkes will call the defense. He was an early target, and I think it's good that he can have that sounding board, because this is going to be somewhat of an inexperienced coaching staff. I mean, you have a special teams coordinator now, Chris Banjo, who shows a lot of promise as not as a head coach, as a special teams coordinator, but he's only got a couple of years of experience from coaching. In fact, I just got off the phone with Mike Westhoff, talking to him about Chris Banjo. He gave him a very strong recommendation to Aaron Glenn. And so Banjo, I think he's 34 years old.
Yeah.
So he's going to be a young coordinator. I think they might end up with Tanner Engstad, who is only 42 and has never been a coordinator before. So I think it was important for Glenn to get a guy like Steve Wilkes on the staff. He's basically the same age. I think they're both in their mid-50s, previous head coaching experience. And, is he a defensive mastermind? I don't know if I would put him in that category, but I think they have a like-minded approach to defense, the way they like to run their defenses. I think they're both blitz-heavy guys. You saw it with Aaron Glenn with Detroit last year, and if you look back through Steve Wilkes' history, with the exception of the 49ers year, He's been a blitz crazy coach through all his coaching. So I thought that was a solid hire for Aaron Glenn. It reminds me of when Sean McVay took over in Los Angeles, obviously at a very young age, and he brought Wade Phillips aboard on his staff, a very seasoned coach who had been a head coach before. And I think Sean McVay will tell you to this day that, that helped him get acclimated into head coaching.
I had Jeremy Fowler, your ESPN teammate, on earlier this week, and his sense was that the Jets, for their offensive coordinator, was going to go with a more up-and-coming guy as opposed to a Steve Wilkes type on the as they did for the defensive side of the ball. Why do you think Aaron Glenn? Do you have any sense on why he decided to go in that direction? Because Jet fans, I'm sure, will be a little bit nervous if Tanner Engstrand ends up being the guy. He's been an OC before, but at the college level, the XFL level, it's never been at the NFL level. So why AG? Why is he going in this direction, or seemingly wanted to for his OC?
Well, a couple of factors. Number one, like, who's out there that's an experienced offensive coordinator? There're just not a lot of guys out there. I mean, if you're a really good offensive coordinator, chances are you're a head coach. So I think, I'm not tracking every OC hiring this cycle, but there's just not a lot of great experienced guys. And the second reason is just the familiarity. He was with them for 4 years in Detroit, and this guy learned under Ben Johnson. So his two biggest influences in his career have been Jim Harbaugh, which he was with Harbaugh for like 13 years at San Diego and also at Michigan. And then he's been with Ben Johnson for 3 or 4 years. So two really good offensive guys. And so I think that's what Aaron Glenn is looking for there, just an up-and-comer. Now, I would not be surprised if he also adds a senior-level coach to that offensive staff. I know Todd Haley's name has been mentioned. Just a guy to kind of be a sounding board and, just a resource. So I wouldn't rule that out either.
Rich, you and the rest of your media compadres did your best to try to get an Aaron Rodgers answer out of Aaron Glenn. What is the timeline? If we don't have the answer of whether or not he wants to ride it back with Aaron or not, or whether Aaron wants to play football, what about a timeline? When are we going to find this out? Free agency is right around the corner. We got the scouting combine. I mean, there are decisions to be made here in the not so distant future.
Yeah, I would think that it would be resolved, probably right before free agency starts, late February, early March. I think Aaron Rodgers is certainly aware of that and is respectful of that. He told us at the end of the year that, he wouldn't drag it out too long. And so, yeah, I could see them, I think once they get this coordinator hired, I could see Aaron, the two Aarons meeting with the coordinator and just sitting down and with Muji and trying to, come to a decision on it, find out where Rodgers' head is at, does he want to play? It's been my feeling all along that I think it's unlikely that Rodgers will be back with the Jets. And I'm just not sure if it's a fit for either side at this point. I think the Jets might be trying to rebuild a little bit, certainly a new coaching staff, a new scheme. Aaron Rodgers has been in like one scheme, maybe two his entire career. And so at age 41, I don't know if he's going to want to learn an entirely new offense. So I think chances are he won't be back with the Jets. And I'm not so sure Aaron Glenn wants him back. It's a big cultural thing there. I mean, it's quite obvious that he doesn't want his quarterback to be like the question I was going to ask Aaron Glenn the other day. I'll let you in on this. When he cut me off. It was one of Bill Parcells' commandments for quarterbacks is, and he said this many times, I don't want celebrity quarterbacks. So he wants his quarterback to be a field general, a battlefield commander, to use his words, and like a hardworking guy, like a Phil Simms, a blue collar guy, hard worker, good leader. that type of thing. And Rodgers, I'm not saying he's not any of those things, but we know that there's more to Aaron Rodgers than that. Like showing up every week on the McAfee show, I don't think that would play well with the way Aaron Glenn wants to run this team. And so I think they'll sit down and talk about it, but I think ultimately I don't think the marriage will continue.
Was AG's back and forth at the introductory press conference, media scrum, all levels of it, when he said that, hey, no one player is above the team. We're not going to, I'm not going to give you an answer on Aaron Rodgers unless I have it. Was that just a message to you guys, the media, or to Aaron Rodgers that, hey, man, there's a new sheriff in town, baby?
Yeah, I mean, whether it was intended or not, I think it served as a message to everyone and the players, and no other names came up. I think Brian Costello asked Glenn about Sauce Gardner, and he gave a, kind of a terse answer on Gardner. He obviously, he said he's was a great player coming out of college and really didn't want to give up too much on any one player. So I think that's just part of the way he's going to coach the team. It's going to be competitive every day. I mean, it's like your spot on the team, just because you come in as a starter, that's not like gifted to you. Like you have to earn it, and guys will get benched. Like one thing I disagreed with under Saleh and Ulbrich, more so Ulbrich, they never benched anyone. It's like they went 5-12, and the only guy who got benched was Tony Adams, and the only reason he got benched is because Woody Johnson didn't want to play it anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't run a team like that. So I think Aaron Glenn will install a meritocracy, and not just that won't be lip service. You hear a lot of lip service when it comes to accountability. I think he will actually live up to that.
Rich, you've covered a lot of these introductory press conferences and conversations. Woody Johnson, to me, again, you've been doing this far longer than I could even think. Woody Johnson seems super more self-reflective than I've looking in the mirror, this, that, or the other. It like I caught me by surprise, like, whoa, where did this Woody Johnson come from? And again, it's just talk right now. Who knows if it actually happens? Did you kind of get the same sense of this extra level of self-reflectiveness that I haven't really heard from Woody in a lot of these other kinds of situations when new regime changes have occurred?
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts on that. And that's a good question, Paul. I'll answer that. So I asked Woody if he was going to perhaps take a step back from what, the perception that he was so involved last year. And, he immediately used that question to shoot down the athletic story, right, saying it was exaggerated, it was hyperbole, yada, yada. And then Kimberly Martin, my colleague at ESPN, asked a really good follow-up question. She asked him, do you do any self-scouting, after the season? And that prompted him to say, of course, I always look in the mirror, and you're right. I have to be a better owner, and I'm trying to be a better owner. So that was the full context of that happened. He did not volunteer that on his own. So he was sort of led into that. But, for Woody, that was somewhat self-reflective. And so I give him a little bit of credit for that. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I don't think he will be as meddlesome with this regime as he was the previous regime is he knows Aaron Glenn. Mm-hmm. He knew him as a player. They overlapped by a couple of years when he bought the team and Aaron, with the Jets. Right. And then he got to know him even better when he came back in 2012 as a scout. And so he knows him. And I think that previous relationship will carry some weight. And also, this is Woody's guy now. Right. Saleh wasn't Woody's guy. Woody was in the UK doing his thing when the Jets hired Saleh and even Joe Douglas too. So I think when Woody went into the season, now he should have just fired him after last season. He should, instead of, if the leash was going to be that short, 5 games, then he should have just done it the year before.
Yeah.
But so I think when they got off to the 2-3 start, he panicked. And he didn't have as much trust in those guys because they weren't his guys. And he felt that he needed to step in and do something, which, of course, just backfired every which way. But I think with these guys, he'll have a little more trust in them because they're his guys, and he's known Aaron Glenn for a while.
And Rich, real quick, as we're getting you out of here, what's your reporting on this? Lance Newmark seemed like he was going to be the GM for the Jets with Aaron Glenn. They both the in-person interview. They both leave. AG gets announced the next day. Then Jets are like, "Yeah, we're going to reopen the search." Whoa, what the hell happened to Lance Newmark? What, did he have a bad interview? What suddenly opened up the race seemingly from the outside, from us looking in? Darren Muji and the Cincinnati Bengals Trey Brown just trying to jump in the mix out of nowhere.
Yeah, the best I could get on that one. So I think the intention was to hire Lance Newmark coming in for that second interview. Like most teams, the Jets, when they come in for a second interview, it's kind of like you have the job, except with the Brown Muji situation. It was kind of like almost like a final. It's like the down to the two.
Right.
Otherwise, it was going to be Newmark's job, and the only thing I could deduce from just trying to connect some dots and talking to different people is that it just didn't click in that, in the face to face, it just didn't click, whether it was a bad interview or maybe the Jets just had a bad feeling. And I think that was probably a smart decision by the Jets, because I was not, I talked to some people about Newmark, and, he went to the Commanders and they had this incredible year, and that's like great. And I heard he was pretty involved, but before that, he really hadn't done anything in Detroit. He was there for so long,
Right.
and they didn't turn it around until Campbell and Brad Holmes showed up. So I thought that would have been a questionable hire. So in that sense, the Muji hire makes sense. I think there was some sentiment on the search committee for Trey Brown as well. So I think that was a discussion amongst the powers that be, and they decided to go with Muji. And time will tell. I think Aaron Glenn is going to be wearing the pants in that marriage, as we all saw from the press conference.
Right.
So, but time will tell on Muji.
Rich, you're a legend. Thank you so much for taking the time. I love and enjoy your work, podcast, the writing, all of the whole boot and caboodle, as far as I'm concerned, Rich Cimini. Thanks for taking the time, my friend.
Always a pleasure, and follow your stuff. And I appreciate the kind words, and hopefully we can do this again. And hopefully it won't be we won't be talking about a new coach or a new GM. Maybe we'll be talking about a playoff appearance or something like that.
Hey, Rich, you're talking to my language right now. That's what I'm talking about, baby.
We'll see. It's been long enough.
Yeah, the we're due function. That's the one I try to throw at people as an optimist myself, or Jet fans, when they're like, "Oh, how do you still have anything in your tank? They haven't been in 14 years." So I go, "They're due," and they're like, "Okay, well, here we are. We can
just think of the party. For Jet fans, it's like it's so frustrating, and I get it. But just think of the party when they make it.
Hey.
So if it's next year or the year after, it's going to be a hell of a party. It'll be a hell of a story, and hopefully I'll be around covering it.
Yeah, it'll be beautiful. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Take care.